What's up, everybody? It's Luke James, not the singer. If you're looking to get your music reviewed, you can hit up this email that's right here. But today I'm going to hit you up with my thoughts and opinions on this new album from Logic called No Pressure. Now, Logic is a rapper who's coming out of Maryland, and he has achieved plenty of commercial success, mostly due to his die-hard and loyal fan base called the Rat Pack. When it comes to critical reception, though, it really does seem that it's his earlier work that got the most buzz. I'm talking about some of those mixtapes he started off with, and then his debut album, Under Pressure, which many people consider to be his best work, myself included, but you guys can let me know down below how you feel about Logic's discography. In recent years, though, I gotta be honest with you, it seems like critics and listeners have not been as kind to Logic. You got projects like the concept album Everybody, that wasn't received too well, the rock-inspired soundtrack Supermarket was panned by pretty much everybody, and even that last album, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, really did not go over well, man. These albums were seen as kind of sloppy, forced at times with some of the ideas and concepts that he was going with, but still, his die-hard fan base for the most part has been hanging on, so Logic is a guy who has success pretty much every time he drops, regardless of what the critics think, so you gotta keep that in mind, man. It doesn't really care what we have to say about his music. He's making what he wants to make, he knows what his fans want to hear, and they're still eating it up, so obviously he's doing it right as an artist. But I do have to say, man, I think this project right here is some of his best work since Under Pressure. The thing is, some of those last couple of projects he put out, things felt forced, as I said. I'm talking about some of the content where he was getting repetitive with the stuff he was rapping about, being kind of cheesy and whiny at times. Even the production choices weren't as strong as some of that earlier work, and of course, we know Logic can flow, but he would be cramming those rapid syllable flows just for the sake of it sometimes, with no real direction or saying much of anything. Those were sort of the knocks on him, but with this album it really does feel like he got back to form. First of all, most of the production here is handled by No ID and Six. I did see Logic's name put along with the production as well, and what you're in for mostly is a lot of smooth hip-hop beats, man. Some of that old school boom bap shit, a lot of piano, again, that vintage Logic sound that you got early on in his career. So the title track kicks the album off. This is a chilly boom bap beat as Logic is just on his boastful shit as he raps about being a top 5 artist who has never fallen off. Now, I definitely don't agree with that because his discography is spottier than a Dalmatian with chickenpox, but I get where he's coming from, man. He's just being the type of rapper who's boosting himself up. That's what most rappers do. They have that confidence, so they always say that they're the best, they never fucked up or whatever, but I mean, I think if you look at some of the reception to these albums, that would say otherwise. But anyway, man, it's still a dope track overall because he kept things simple. It doesn't get too deep here. I really like the production, the flows on it were on point, and you also get Orson Welles' commentary on the beginning of this track. He shows up once again on the outro track to speak on race relations. It's kind of crazy how it's still poignant in 2020 when this clip of him is from, like, I don't know, 60, 70 years ago, something like that. And another thing, we get Thalia popping up all over this album, including on this intro track. You might remember her from previous projects where she drops these little tidbits and pieces of information. That is exactly what she's doing here, just letting you know what was going on during the creation of this album. So all these things really do lend to that throwback feel, which is exactly what makes this feel like a sequel to Under Pressure. So I do like how he went back to that classic sound and is bringing you lots of throwback references, ideas, song titles, and everything in regards to his previous work. I think if you're a die-hard Logic fan, you're going to pick up on a lot of stuff here, but even for the more casual fans, you'll notice certain things. Like on GP4, for example, where he's continuing his Growing Pains series. You're even going to get Soul Food 2, which is a sequel to the first Soul Food on his debut album. So these ideas are all pretty cool. I like Soul Food. You get this gorgeous vocal sample-led production. Logic is on here rapping a bit about his career, but then he uses that second verse to break down the story on The Incredible True Story, where we got this space adventure. He just goes into more detail there, really giving his fans what they want to hear. I think that's something Logic has always done throughout his albums, done these little tie-ins to previous work, even to his book that he put out, that soundtrack, all that type of stuff. Logic knows what he's doing, so I think he's a smart businessman, and he knows how to give his fans what they want. But to get back to Growing Pains, this is a track where he's ripping rapid flows about his humble beginnings, just as a kid who was out there robbing cars, ducking police, and all that type of shit. And you are getting some serious Outkast vibes here because the hook on here does interpolate the hook from Elevators. Even the beat has a bit of a similar vibe to it because it's very hazy. So I thought this was a pretty cool track, but it's also a bold ass choice to borrow from a classic like that. Hearing this GP4 song, it's okay, but really it just made me go back and listen to Elevators, which reminded me how dope that track is. So this is something I always say whenever you borrow from a classic, whether it's the instrumental, whether it's the hook or anything like that. And this has always sort of been a knock on Logic Logic. He's not the only one that does it, but he really wears his inspirations and his influences on his sleeves. At times it's a little overbearing. At times I think people critique him for that because it does show a little lapse in creativity just when he's borrowing so many elements, whether it's flows, production choices, samples, etc., etc. And you're going to notice a lot of that throughout here, man. Logic is kind of like Shang Tsung on most of the projects that he does. He does put his own Logic spin on it, but you know what I'm saying with some of this stuff, man. Like on Man I Is, he's name dropping his various inspirations while also using the same sample from Erykah Badu's track Didn't You Know. Dark Place, this low-key sounds like a Drake song to me, man. It's got that brooding, introspective feel. Even the delivery style he's using and how he's getting introspective sounds like one of those run-on Drake verses. And you're going to pick up on some A Tribe Called Quest and Kanye references all over this album, man, especially the Kanye thing, because Celebration and Heard Him Say are clear nods to Kanye's tracks by the same name, with Celebration being the better track of the two. I like the sample-based production on here. You get a solid feature from Silas, although he doesn't really bring anything unique. He doesn't stand out in any way, but the verse is good. And the song even starts off with Logic saying, "It's a celebration, bitches," again, like Kanye was doing on that song. Logic has some cool moments on the song as well, as he's calling out the critics who try to tell him how he should rap when they haven't even done half of what he's done. As for Heard Him Say, this is one of my least favorite tracks on here. You do have Logic spitting that even if he was signed to Yeezy, he still wouldn't be good enough. Another reference to Kanye's Good Music label. So, you know, that track to me was kind of dull. And really what grabbed me the most about this album is when Logic was opening up his content and expanding into some new territory. Like on the song Dad Bod, where he's rapping about how he's moving out of hip hop to focus on being a father and a family man. As he spits about, you know, his newfound life, changing diapers, making these grocery trips while his wifey is bringing him up and bothering him. He even jokes that he loves his wife like Chance, and he could tell you more about diapers than modern rappers in ciphers. So to a certain crowd, I'm sure this is kind of cheesy. Even sonically, there wasn't anything too amazing or incredible here, but I do appreciate him branching into this content, and I can relate to it, man. I'm all about that dad life, so I feel where he's coming from, because you do hit a certain point where you got to move on from certain shit in order to focus on your family and be the best man you can be. I totally think that's cool, so shout out to Logic for taking that next step. Now he raps about his newfound happiness, living this lifestyle even further on Open Mic / Aquarius 3, as he spits, "Don't want nothing from me but my happiness. Off the internet, that's when I'm happiest. Scrolling so much my thumb fucked up, we call that carpal tunnel vision." That's me just reading the lines and fucking them up. I thought those were some pretty dope bars right there. Sometimes it's easy to get sucked into the Twitterverse and social media. Things are just more negative than they've ever been on social media, in my opinion. And on this track, he also opens up about being a self-proclaimed crack baby who grew up around domestic violence, racism. There's a threat of winding up in a group home. These moments of introspection, insight, and nostalgia really do help uplift this album. And that's something else that reminds me of Under Pressure, because on there, he was telling a lot of his story. There are times with some of these verses, though, where I feel like he doesn't flesh everything out into great detail throughout the song. It's not that the songwriting takes a lot of different approaches or overly interesting concepts or anything like that, but as you listen through, you are going to pick up on things here and there, so I certainly give him props for that. Even on the song Hit My Line, he's speaking to God about the woes of the world, as he says, "Evil politicians, people on Twitter bitching, hashtagging, but in real life, they never pitch in." This is something we've seen all the time, man, because most of these politicians are fucked up. Twitter has basically just become one giant complaint forum. That's all it is, coming back to what I said earlier about social media being negative. You do get a dope beat from Six on here. I like those steady piano keys and the little guitar strums that come in. So there are moments throughout this album that I really enjoy, but sonically I would say it's pretty safe. A lot of this stuff does feel samey and familiar, which on one hand is part of the charm, because that's what you're getting. You're getting the sequel to Under Pressure. It's giving you that throwback Logic, but at the same time, there weren't a lot of moments here where I was jumping out of my seat. I was blown away by these very intricate storytelling details, or the production was just something unique, very creative and different. You know, I didn't really get that next level shit here from Logic, but I still think it's some of his best work, and it's really dope, so that's just how I feel about it. So far. I do have a bit more to speak on, though. We get the song Five Hooks. Here he's recounting his hip-hop beginnings way back to the start, all the way up until now in 2020, where he's basically become a boss man. He's handling his business. He's had much success. And on A to Z, we're basically getting a lesser version of Papooses' track, Alphabetical Slaughter. The whole concept here is just based around A to Z. He's teaching his son the alphabet. Just kind of weak. I didn't like the beat on this at all. I don't think the execution was that great either. But I brought this up because I want to tie it into what I was just saying about about the rise in Logic's career. On the end of this track, A to Z, you do get to hear a little 2005 demo from Logic, which I just thought was very interesting. It's cool for him to put that on his so-called retirement album. I say retirement album because you know how it is. Rappers rarely retire. They always come back. It's hard to leave the game for good. He might have more stories to tell now that he's a father. We'll see. But I just thought it was cool to hear that. We also get the song Amen. To me, this is just all around forgettable. Absolutely nothing about this stuck out to me, so I would put those two songs as my least favorites. But yeah, at the end of the day, man, I thought this was a pretty damn good project. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I did think about a 7.5 possibly, but 7.5s and up are for projects that are going to make my year-end list, the projects I really like and I really come back to. But I don't see this one having a ton of replay value for me, honestly. Sonically, it's pretty dope. I think lyrically, he did step it up compared to his past projects. You're going to get some clever wordplay, a bit of storytelling and all that, but it didn't give me enough as far as just hit me over the head with some crazy production or crazy concepts, bars that are just blowing me away. You know, that's kind of what I look for, something just to lift the points up a little bit. I didn't get that, but it's still a pretty damn good album. Safe, familiar, that's part of the charm, but also what hurts it, in my opinion. But the one song I didn't talk about is Perfect. I just want to wrap up here. That shit has bass thicker than Natasha Dolce. It is an all-out banger. Nothing too heavy happening with it. I did like the little Juicy J sample on there, but just imagine like Denzel Curry on the remix, man. That beat is nasty as hell. Pretty dope track, so I did like that one. And that's all I got to say about it, man. I'm curious to see the comment section here. I want to see how you guys feel about this album. Do you think it's some of his best work since Under Pressure like I do? I would probably put this maybe about on par with The Incredible True Story, maybe a little bit above that, because I didn't love Tits, as it was called, as much as this. But Real Titties, yeah, you know I love those, man. That's above all Logic albums, probably. But that's a whole other damn discussion. Let me know down below what you guys think. Make sure you do that good YouTube and social media stuff where you show me love and you show me lots of it. Thank you for watching, everybody. I will see you next time.